Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Klim from Turn to the Stars, and today is Wednesday, October 28th, as I'm recording this show, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the presidential election and the astrology around that, and I'm going to be doing that over the course of the next couple days as well. And I'm not here to make any predictions, but I would like to share you some information which is from an astrology and spiritual standpoint around the energy that is surrounding both Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and as a whole, the United States birth chart. And just a quick reminder, astrology is not a tool for stating conclusions. It just provides us with an understanding and a sense of the planetary cycles and their influences within us and around us. And one thing that I found in preparing my research for talking about this is Abraham Lincoln said, "The best way to predict the future is to choose it." So it's really important that we all keep that in mind as we move through this time of intensity, calling it the Great Reset, especially with this full moon energy that's coming this Saturday with Uranus right beside the full moon in Taurus. So this is an indication of huge breakthroughs of patterns where we've been stuck, but it's also it can behave as extremely it can be extremely unpredictable and crazy, especially for people that have not looked inside or looked at their shadow or looked at the things that, so to speak, haunt them or have caused a lot of pain. And so then there tends to be this outer reaction. So this is really a time for understanding, for being compassionate, for taking time to be quiet. If you get a chance to take a look at your astrology and the influences that are going on, that's always helpful to understand. So I'm going to go right into, there were a couple sources that I did some research on prior to feeling comfortable enough to talk about this, and it's outside sources, not just astrology. There is actually a professor, Professor Alan Lichtman, teacher of history at American University for 50 years, and he has been someone that's called the Nostradamus of presidential elections, and he uses something called the 13 keys to form his opinion, and he predicts that Trump's going to lose. Then I looked at John Antonakis. He's a professor of organizational behavior at the Faculty of Business and Economics at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland, and he says that Trump is more charismatic and has an advantage due to economic fundamentals, but it's shaky. And then the Yale model predicts a close election because we're in a coronavirus fog right now. And they say it all depends on what happens in the financial sectors in the third quarter. And then I looked at one more source to be very mutual and just kind of give credit to these different sources. I looked at someone who his name is Henry Weingarten, and he says that Trump's going to win. He's the manager director of the Astrologers Funds of Investor Intel. But I might add that after doing some research and talking to somebody I know who's very well educated with the stock market, we discovered that he was wrong with his financial predictions about the stocks in August. So the fact is that the stocks peaked in late August to 8% over what they are today, which is huge. That was a 25% loss. So theoretically, there was a short-term increase. Weingarten predicted a significant drop. So I looked at the United States birth chart, and there's a couple spots there that are very notable. A birth chart can be done based on the birth of anything, whether it be a human being, a pet, a question about a particular time. So a birth chart can be done at the birth of anything, whether it be a question, whether it be a live being, or a particular event. And the United States birth chart, I used July 4th, 1776, and the time I used, I don't have the time right in front of me here, but the birth chart of the United States has the sun in Cancer. It also has Mercury in Cancer. Let me just look at the chart here. It has Jupiter in Cancer, Venus in Cancer. So our minds, our spirit, our beliefs, and our values are all... Cancer is compassionate, it is nurturing, it is caregiving. And these planets are located on the right side of the chart, meaning that these are things that have come to us, but these are things that we put out to others. We've been a nation that's been very nurturing. And one of the things in this chart that really stands out is that Mars is in the 7th house in Gemini. Mars is a planet of action, movement, desire, but it's also the planet of anger and war. Mars is the god of war. In Gemini, that means there's a duality going on. And when we were birthed, Mars was in square to Neptune in the 9th house of foreign lands, belief systems, religion. So there was war going on, and it was based on, 9th house is also politics. Neptune is deception, suffering. We were suffering because there was war going on at that time. And this particular aspect is being triggered by Donald Trump's Sun, North Node, and Uranus in his chart. So it's sort of I'd have to say that this is he's a Gemini, and his sun and his sun, his North Node, and Uranus are all right on top of that Mars in the birth chart in reference to the United States birth chart. So he triggers that pain, and that's actually almost a signature of, that particular signature is one of war, and it also triggers a duality of around beliefs, a separation. And so there's something there to consider. And Joe Biden, both of them have their own separate personalities, and Joe Biden has some significant other things that we have going on also. And his Saturn actually is, let me just look at this for a second here. His Saturn, by progression, just woke up. And progression means the progression of a person's soul. And so that happened in September of this year. So whenever you have a planet by progression wake up, it changes your life drastically. And when I look at his chart, let me just grab his chart here for a second. His chart, Saturn is in his 7th house of personal relationships, business relationships, marital relationships, and it's in Gemini. So his work in this life is going to be associated with relating to people, and taking into account both sides of information, of data, of knowledge. And so he's got something, you know, I would say that responsibilities are the responsibility of what he says, how he says it, how he interacts with people is very, very much a important place of responsibility, and he takes it very he takes a lot of responsibility with that. Joe Biden is also an empath. He's got the signature of an empath in his birth chart. You know, I have to say that both candidates show that they have a lot of secrets, a lot of things that they're not ready to share right on the surface. And so I'm going to talk more about that in future recordings, but for today, one thing I do want to talk about with the United States birth chart and the transits to the United States birth chart is that Uranus has been squaring the lunar nodes of the United States birth chart. And what this indicates is a strong call for truth and for us to gain clarity, to wake up about who we are, and to do the work of the 8th house, which is do the emotional work that we as a nation need to do, to remember the reality of our history, and to move through this process with courage and with open hearts to heal from the pain and the loss to overcome. So it's important that we stay focused on recovery. And one of the things that is also very significant in the United States chart, which is being triggered right now, is Chiron at the very bottom. Chiron's a wounded healer. It means it's the wounds that we carry. And we were birthed with Chiron in Aries in the 4th house, which is the roots of our being. It's pain and suffering at the root or the core of who we are. And it's in Aries, so it's about our identity. And we actually have the Mars retrograde transit going right through there as well. So this is an indication that our country has a lot of pain at the very root, and it's associated with people's identity and discrimination about identity. And that has to do with whether skin color, with gender, with sexual preference. And so these things have run rampant in our country, and they are at the root of our being. These are the things that we, as a whole, as a collective, as a country, as a huge community of people that were rooted and birthed based on being united instead of divided. Yes, we have two parties here in the United States, and the duality that shows up in the United States birth chart. So I think it's very important that we all vote, that we all have our say, and I'm not sure how much of that, well, I should say that there's a lot of questions that are coming up right now, but I also want you to know that the astrology, the influences of the planets that surround us here on Earth are helping us to understand they're our neighbors. Just like we in our houses, we have neighbors. What they do affects us, what we do affects them. So our neighbors, the planets that surround us on Earth, affect us very, very much. So how things unfold is our choice. And the transits that we're in right now are telling us it's a time for clarity and to cut through illusion, to see the truth, to face our shadows of being traumatized and traumatizing others, and that we should listen to the conversations and the signs that the planets surrounding us are giving us. I mean, it's their energy. I like to say that the planets, however, how they're interacting is the conversation or the energy that they're putting out to us. So I think that the most important thing is that we have a leader who has compassion, who has our best interests in mind, that their focus is on uniting us rather than dividing us, and that we should look for justice and truth. And I think that's the most important thing right now. And like I said, I'm not here to predict the election or the outcome, because I know the energy around it is very erratic, very mind-blowing to say the least. So I hope that you will tune back in tomorrow. I thank you for, actually not tomorrow, the next day. I'm going to be doing these every 2 days. And I appreciate you all so much. And if you liked or felt that this was helpful, I'd appreciate if you'd give it a like and a share. And just remember, turn to the stars and you'll find your answers there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you have an awesome, awesome day. See you soon.